Welcome back to Vanguard Vault. If you've been here before, you already know the ritual. Dim the lights, put your phone face down, and promise you won't pause. If you're new, breathe in once, slow, and type in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time your clock shows. Every place has its own hour of silence, and North Carolina's begins the moment that second hand hits 12. They call this the state of blue hills and bright mornings, but when night comes down over the pines, the mountains remember things the towns have forgotten. There are hospitals here that never really closed, not completely. You can board up a door, you can move the patients, you can even burn the files, but you can't turn off a building that learned to listen. Picture it. A two-lane road curling between the trees, no traffic, no cell signal. The air smells of rain and rust. Through the windshield, a sign half hidden by kudzu reads, State Medical Unit. Closed. You slow down without meaning to. The gate is unlocked. The wind moves it just enough to make a slow metallic groan. Beyond the fence, brick buildings sit under the moon like open mouths. Somewhere deep inside, something metal rolls across the floor and stops. You tell yourself it's a branch or maybe a raccoon, but the sound comes again, steady, rhythmic, like wheels. That is how every story begins here. Someone takes one step too far past the line between curiosity and memory. North Carolina's map is dotted with the ruins of mercy, places built for care, abandoned when medicine changed. Morganton, Raleigh, Goldsboro, Asheville. Each town has its quiet block where the grass grows taller than the signs. At first glance, they all look the same. Red brick, white columns, a row of black windows that reflect nothing. But each one has its own heartbeat, faint and stubborn. And tonight we're going to listen. The first building waits just outside Morganton, a complex of wards and courtyards, known locally as the Sleeping Giant. By daylight it's almost handsome, all Victorian symmetry and stone arches. At night it looks alive because the windows catch any bit of light and hold it like eyes. This is Broughton Hospital, opened in the 1880s for the care of the mentally afflicted. Half of it still runs under bright fluorescent order. The other half has been sealed since the 1960s, its hallways left to dust and echo. The story goes that when construction crews came to modernize the East Wing, they found an entire floor arranged as if a meeting had just ended. Beds rolled into a circle, chairs facing inward, notebooks open on tables, though no paper remained. One worker joked that it looked like a therapy session that never stopped. The next morning his clipboard was missing. They found it 2 days later, balanced on a windowsill 3 stories up. No footprints, no ladder, no reason. The old security logs from the 90s mention phantom intercom activity. Guards heard short bursts of static that formed syllables. One voice, soft and polite, said, "Can you see us now?" The line went dead. They removed the phone, sealed the wall, and stopped night patrols for a week. If you're still watching, type "I can hear you" below. It helps the algorithm, and maybe it helps something else know you're listening. From Broughton's Hills, the road slides east toward Raleigh, where another campus sleeps under the name Dorothea Dix Hospital. In the daylight, the old buildings look almost cheerful, surrounded by parks and playgrounds. But the locals remember the years before the fences came down, when visitors were warned not to linger after dark. They say the tunnels beneath the main building breathe like lungs. One janitor told a reporter that he used to hear typewriter keys in the basement long after patient records had gone digital. Every time he followed the sound, it stopped, leaving only the smell of ozone, like a storm about to break. During the final weeks before closure, staff removed hundreds of patient files for storage. When they opened the archive room, every single drawer was already pulled out halfway, labels turned upside down. No sign of entry, no footprints in the dust. The maintenance chief sealed the door and wrote one sentence in his report: "The building is doing it itself." If you're wearing headphones right now, don't take them off. You'll hear the hum behind my voice, the faint hospital buzz that never ends. Some people say it's the sound of electricity. Others say it's the leftover echo of 1,000 whispered prayers that never found a home. Keep listening. We're not even halfway through the first night. The hospitals ahead are older, colder, and hungrier for company. The next one sits in the mountains above Asheville, where veterans once learned to walk again, and sometimes forgot they'd already died. For now, take a breath, look around the room you're in, and promise you won't pause, because the moment you look away, the halls start whispering your name. The road road from Morganton twists east through the Carolina foothills, through stretches of forest that look identical until you notice the light begin to change. The air turns thin, silver, like water reflecting the moon. That's when the radio loses signal and the asphalt seems to forget where it's going. Travelers who drive this route at night sometimes see the faint shape of a tower through the trees, a single brick spire that looks like a church, but it is not. Locals say it marks the edge of an older property, one built long before highways connected these towns. If you were to follow that tower shadow, you would reach what remains of Broughton's sister institution, a small collection of brick wards half sunk into the hillside. The locals call this one the Western Annex, though it never had an official name. It was used briefly for overflow patients during the 1930s, then sealed. Hunters who camp nearby talk about the sound of trolleys rolling over gravel long after midnight. Once, a pair of hikers found their tent unzipped from the inside while they slept. Nothing stolen, no prints, just the smell of alcohol wipes and iodine lingering in the air. That smell turns up again 200 miles away in Raleigh, where the old Dorothea Dix property still keeps its front gates polished, even though most of the buildings stand empty. The city has converted parts of it into offices and parks, but the heart of the campus, the central administration block, stays off limits. They say the basement is a maze of hallways built on top of older tunnels, each one bricked up halfway, as if someone tried to trap air itself. Contractors working the site told stories of papers that shuffled when no wind was moving, and stair lights that flickered in time with footsteps no one could see. One evening, a groundskeeper swore he saw someone standing in the window of the highest tower, a woman in a long gray uniform looking straight at him. He waved. The light blinked out. He thought the bulb had died, until the next night, when the same figure appeared in a different window, farther down the hall, closer to the ground. If you've been to Raleigh, you know how the skyline glows at night. If you ever notice one window darker than the rest, that's where the stories say she moved next. Type in the comments if you've ever driven past Dix Park after midnight. Did you notice which floor stays dark? Farther west, in the mountain folds above Asheville, sits a cluster of old brick buildings hidden behind chain link and vines. The remains of Oteen Veterans Hospital, founded during the First World War. It treated soldiers who carried home both visible wounds and the kind that lived only in dreams. Over time, most of the wards were demolished, but locals swear that on quiet nights you can still hear marching boots echo through the trees. A local guide once described the phenomenon like this: "It is not a sound you hear with your ears, it is in your chest, like someone tapping the inside of your ribs." Urban explorers who sneak through the fences claim that every camera battery drains the moment you step inside the old surgical wing. Some insist they heard faint singing, old marching songs slightly off-key. A historian who studied the site believes the melody comes from air whistling through the broken tiles. Maybe he's right, or maybe that's what he told himself to make the drive home easier. Now, if you're watching this under a blanket, tell me in the comments, are you alone right now? Or is someone sitting beside you who wasn't there when you hit play? From Asheville, our path bends southeast to Cherry Hospital in Goldsboro, a place that was once described as a city within a city. Cherry still functions as a medical facility today, but there's an older section abandoned in the 1970s where time feels stuck at 5 minutes past 3. Workers who've gone in to check the foundations say every clock they find inside points to that same time, even though there's no electricity. A local electrician once brought a new digital clock in his toolbox. When he turned it on, it flickered, hummed, and froze at 3:05 before the batteries died. There's a legend about one particular room in the old administration wing. They call it the Echo Ward. No matter how softly you speak, your voice comes back to you, but not as an echo. It answers. If you ask a question, it repeats the last 2 words in a different tone, as if testing them. The story probably began with an acoustics quirk, but teenagers still dare each other to go inside and ask, "Who's there?" The brave ones who try usually run out before the echo finishes the phrase. Some say the replies don't always stop when you leave the building. If you're still here watching, type "I'm still hearing it" in the comments, so I'll know you made it past the Echo Ward. A little farther north lies Greensboro State Hospital, the kind of place that doesn't appear on most maps. It operated briefly during the early 20th century as an isolation facility for influenza patients. When the epidemic ended, they burned much of the main building, but the chapel survived. It's nothing more than a shell now, 4 walls, no roof. But people driving past claim they see light spilling upward from the floor, as if candles were burning below ground. Once a year, on the anniversary of the hospital's closure, residents of a nearby subdivision wake to find small white feathers scattered along their driveways. The town sweeps them up by noon. No one admits where they come from. Stories like these thread through the entire state, connecting one forgotten building to the next. If you mapped them, you'd see a line of dots stretching from the mountains to the coast, like a pulse running through the land itself. Every town adds a verse to the same story: the nurse who never clocks out, the intercom that still calls codes in the empty wings, the elevator that opens to a floor that doesn't exist on the blueprint. Maybe the truth isn't that these hospitals are haunted. Maybe they simply remember how to do what they were built for: keep records, check vitals, call names. The human part ended, the habit stayed. Now, while you're still here, take a second and tap that like button. Not for me, but so you'll have something bright on your screen while the next story starts to unfold. It helps to have a little light when you're walking deeper into these halls. Because next we head toward the coast, to a hospital whose walls were painted sea green to calm patients who could hear waves they couldn't. TC. Out there, the salt wind corrodes metal and memory alike. They say even the ghosts rust slowly. Take a breath, don't pause. The next door's about to open. The wind off the Atlantic is sharp, carrying a tang of salt and rusted metal. If you've ever driven along the old coastal highways of North Carolina after dark, you know how quiet it can be. The kind of quiet that doesn't just fill the air, it fills your chest. Tonight, that quiet is going to follow us as we move towards some of the state's most forgotten hospitals. You may want to check the locks on your doors, but you'll want to stay with me. By the time we finish, you'll understand why the coastline holds more than just sand and surf. The first building we encounter is just south of Wilmington, a sprawling sanatorium built in the early 1900s. Locals call it the Old Wilmington Sanatorium, though no map will name it. By day, it appears to be nothing more than a roofless ruin, walls blackened by years of wind and salt. At night, the shadows stretch across the marshes like fingers. Urban explorers who've ventured past the barricades tell stories of corridors where the air is impossibly cold, the walls damp and breathing. One teenager swore that a light flickered in a room that had no windows. He left quickly, only to find a muddy footprint on the stair he never stepped on. If you're watching this, type "I'm still here" in the comments now. Don't just scroll. This is the moment where attention counts. If you type it, we'll know you're walking these halls with me. A few miles inland lies James Walker Memorial Hospital, a coastal facility abandoned for decades after a hurricane damaged the wings facing the Sound. What remained was boarded, but some of the hallways never fully closed. Visitors describe a strange rhythm when they enter the West Wing, a soft tapping, like a nurse rolling a cart just out of sight. The legend says that even in the 1970s, when the building was operational, staff reported voices calling names that weren't listed on any roster. When the last patients were moved, the voices didn't leave. They lingered in the hallways, murmuring through vents and peeling paint. Imagine walking down a long corridor, lights overhead flickering, only to hear a whispered name. You turn. Nothing. The walls seem to pulse slightly, as if remembering the weight of every step ever taken there. For those of you still watching, comment below. What would you do if a voice called your name in an empty hallway? Think about that. Hold it in your mind while we move to the next hospital. Further east, near the coast of Pitt County, stands the Isolation Ward, a small annex once used to separate patients from infectious diseases. Overgrown paths now lead to its main door, which swings on creaking hinges when the wind is strong. Locals say that after the facility closed, children walking nearby sometimes reported seeing shapes in the windows, figures that moved but never walked, floating from room to room. One legend claims that during a storm in 1983, the power failed entirely, but a lone operating lamp in the East Wing glowed for 3 nights, despite no electricity reaching the building. Some say it's still burning faintly during hurricanes, just enough to illuminate the empty corridors. And here's where I want you to pause. mentally, not physically, and imagine stepping inside. Feel the damp stone under your feet, the smell of salt and mold, the faint scrape of something metal in the distance. Type, "I can see it" in the comments if you're imagining it clearly. I promise it will make the next story feel alive. Next, we move north toward New Bern, where a lesser-known facility called Coastal Psychiatric Annex waits quietly behind overgrown hedges. Built in the 1920s, it was intended for short-term care, but its walls quickly gained a reputation for holding more than patients. Workers from the nearby municipal hospital claim that when they inspected the old annex during renovations in the 1990s, they found hospital charts arranged in neat piles on the floors, as though someone had just been reviewing them. No footprints, no sign of entry, just the papers and the faint smell of antiseptic. They say if you flip through one chart, the patient names are gone, replaced with single letters, sometimes forming words like wait or still. Now, if you're still with me, go ahead and hit subscribe right now, because the next stories will take us into wings you won't believe exist, rooms that twist perception, and echoes that may repeat your own voice. Subscribing now ensures you don't miss the tales that will make even the bravest explorers shiver. As the road bends toward the Outer Banks, you'll find Roanoke Infirmary, a long-abandoned building rumored to have once been a quarantine site. By day, it looks entirely innocuous, hidden behind modern offices and apartment blocks. At night, though, the fog rolls in from the sound and clings to the windows like fingers. Witnesses tell stories of lights turning on and off along hallways that no longer have electricity, of shadowed figures standing just beyond vision. A local historian describes it as a place where the building remembers every cough, every sigh, every footstep that passed through. And then there's Cape Fear Children's Unit, a hospital wing abandoned after decades of neglect. No official records explain why it was shuttered, but the locals insist they can hear children's laughter carried by the wind, even during the dead of night. Explorers who have dared to enter report that toys left in closets appear moved in the morning, not by anyone human. Some say the echoes are playful, others say they are a warning. Either way, the stories have been told for generations. I want you to do something right now. Take a slow breath. Listen. Imagine that hallway, the smell of old floors, the whisper of unseen visitors. Now type in the comments, "I hear them," if you can feel the chill. By doing so, you're joining the Vault family, part of the shared experience, a witness to the echoes these halls refuse to release. The beauty of these legends is in their subtlety. None of them have names, none of them have faces you can capture, but every brick, every broken window, every rusted door has a story. It's as though the hospitals themselves are alive, not with patients, not with staff, but with memory. The walls remember what humans forget. The floors remember footsteps that weren't meant to leave an impression. The air remembers conversations no one else can hear. And as we prepare to move inland again, toward the final chapters of tonight's journey, consider this. Every hospital we've walked past has left its mark. The footsteps you imagine in the dark are echoes of the past. The light flickers you picture are memories of care and fear intertwined. Every legend, every whispered tale, every chill in the air is a reminder that these buildings were built to hold life. And now, they hold something else. Before we step into the next set of hospitals, take a moment to subscribe to Vanguard Vault. Hit that bell icon. Comment one word below, anything, just to let me know you're still watching, still listening, still here with me. Because the next stories, the ones inland, are older, darker, and some say, impossible to leave. The wind off the Atlantic continues, and the salt clings to your skin as you imagine walking the last stretch of the coastal ruins. You feel the rhythm now, don't you? The taps in the distant sighs, the low hum of a building that refuses to forget. Keep it in your mind. Hold on to it. Because when we return inland, the hospitals will grow taller in your imagination. Their corridors will stretch endlessly, and you'll feel the pull of the unexplained stronger than ever. Stay with me, Vault family. The coastal silence isn't over. It's only the beginning. Some stories linger longer than the buildings themselves. These are the encounters that locals whisper about, the ones explorers return from with eyes wide and voices low. Not every shadow is a ghost, not every sound is a spirit, but when you stand in the right hallway at the right hour, You can feel the air itself remembering. The first encounter begins in the west wing of Broughton Hospital. The legend tells of a monitor left behind in a sealed ward, an old cardiac machine disconnected decades ago. One night, during renovations, the machine flickered to life. No cables, no power source, yet the screen pulsed faintly with green light. Staff who approached claimed they could hear whispers through the static. They say the words weren't English, but you could understand them if you concentrated. A sequence of fragmented phrases, broken sentences, calling for help. Imagine it yourself for a moment. The monitor beeps again in your mind, soft and rhythmic. What would you say if it whispered back to you? Type it in the comments. Keep it brief. Let me know if you'd answer. Next, we move to Dorothea Dix Hospital's coastal wing, where there is a single room known to locals as the room that waits. According to legend, every night at exactly 3:05 a.m., the room's light flickers on. Motion sensors record movement, yet when staff check the room, it is empty. Some say it is a ghost waiting for someone to return. Some say it is the past itself, echoing in the present. Picture the door in front of you. Would you enter if the light turned on? Comment. I wouldn't to, or I'd go, depending on your answer, but think carefully. From the mountains to the veterans' wards in Asheville, we hear the story of footsteps in the fog. In Otene, the old halls are empty, but the rhythm of marching boots continues long after the building closed. People passing the corridors describe it as a sound that isn't outside, isn't inside, but somewhere in between. Imagine walking with headphones, alone, and suddenly a steady, measured tap accompanies your own steps. Pause for a moment. Can you feel it echoing in your chest? Tell me in the comments if your heart started racing just imagining it. Now let's descend to the coastal region again, toward the Cape Fear Children's Unit. The abandoned wing here is infamous for one reason: the laughter of children. Stories describe toys moving overnight, placed neatly in the center of rooms, or slightly shifted as though touched by unseen hands. Explorers who enter report hearing a low chorus of laughter, not cruel, but strangely persistent. It's playful, yet it sticks to the air. What would you do if you heard that laughter tonight? Type "I'd hide" or "I'd follow" in the comments. Visualize the toys, the empty hall, and the sound ricocheting through space you can't touch. Finally, we arrive at Cherry Hospital's Echo Ward. This room has captured the imaginations of every urban explorer in the area. Multiple voices layer over one another, repeating questions, answering ones that were never asked aloud. They say the echoes mimic your own voice, forming sentences that sound familiar but slightly off. Imagine standing in that room speaking a single word, only to hear it repeated back in dozens of tones, some soft, some sharp, each one seeming to come from a different direction. What would you ask if the room could respond? Pause. Take a deep breath. Type it below. As we recount these encounters, consider the pattern. All of these hospitals remember. The walls, the monitors, the empty rooms, the floors, they have absorbed the motions of care and fear, and now they replay them. None of these are confirmed events. None are photographed in ways that prove their reality. Yet the stories persist because the human imagination is fueled by what might have been, and the buildings are patient teachers of our own curiosity. If you're still with me, take a moment to hit like for each encounter that made your skin crawl. Pressing the button keeps the story alive for everyone watching tonight, and it signals to YouTube that this is a tale worth telling. If your fingers are already on the screen, go ahead and subscribe now, because what comes next is even darker, older, and deeper than the coastal silence. We're moving inland to hospitals whose stories predate records, where corridors twist endlessly and legends say you can feel time itself slowing. Remember the whispers, the flickering lights, the laughter, the echoes. They are not the end. They are only the beginning. And now, as we move to the next chapters, you should take a mental snapshot of your own heartbeat, because these encounters are the baseline for what comes next. Rooms that never stop waiting, halls that never stop remembering, walls that refuse to be silent. The magic of these legends lies in their persistence. A child's drawing in an abandoned wing, a monitor flickering in the darkness, the gentle tap of marching boots. They all serve as reminders that the past never fully disappears. The encounters are subtle yet insistent, coaxing the imagination to participate. You can close your eyes, or you can imagine stepping through the doors yourself. Either way, your mind is now part of the story. Finally, before we leave this segment, type, "I survived the coastal silence," if you're still here with me. It will mark you as a member of the Vault family, part of the shared experience. And remember, in the legends of these hospitals, attention matters. The longer you listen, the more the story reveals itself. Not to everyone, only to those willing to stay. Take a slow breath. Feel the air around you. Imagine the corridors stretching endlessly, the echoes repeating your own voice, the faint light flickering far ahead. This is the point where the mundane ends and the haunted begins. And when we return inland for the final chapters, the hospitals will grow taller in your mind, the shadows longer, and the whispers will speak louder than ever. As we move inland from the coastal ruins, the forests thicken, and the air carries a heavier scent of moss and decay. The wind seems to curve around the trees, guiding you down narrow, forgotten roads. Here the hospitals stand as sentinels, their windows darkened, walls peeling, but somehow still aware. You can feel it when you slow your car, the hairs on the back of your neck pricking as if the buildings themselves are watching. The first of these inland legends is the Coastal Psychiatric Annex's Inland Wing. Locals whisper that its corridors are longer than they should be. Step inside, and no matter how far you walk, the hallways seem to stretch, folding back on themselves like a maze. Footsteps echo when no one else is present, and sometimes the air hums with whispers just beyond comprehension. One visitor reported passing a doorway, only to find themselves back at the entrance they swore they had just left. Imagine the weight of that hallway pressing down on your chest, the silence punctuated by a distant rhythmic tap. If you're still watching, type, "I would walk it." Just one word to let me know you would dare to step inside. Not far from there, Roanoke Infirmary sits cloaked in fog most nights. The building appears ordinary at first glance, but the fog seems to move of its own volition, seeping through broken windows and curling along the staircases. Inside, lights flicker in patterns that no electrician can explain. Some claim invisible hands push doors open just enough to make a quiet, metallic squeak. Staff who once worked here reported feeling cold drafts sweep through rooms, though all windows were sealed. One explorer swore they saw a shadow pause at the top of a stairwell, motionless, staring. Your mind fills in the details, doesn't it? That pause in the hallway, the shadow that waits. Further along, we return to the Cape Fear Children's Unit, but now the focus is on its sealed upper floors. Even decades after abandonment, the laughter of children echoes through empty halls. Explorers describe toys moving as though guided by unseen hands. A ball rolls across a hallway, then stops abruptly. Dolls reposition themselves on shelves. Some visitors swear the sound of laughter becomes clearer during storms, carried by the wind in whispers that slip under doors. Picture standing there yourself, the storm rattling the old windows. One small comment here is enough. "I'd stay" or "I'd leave," your choice, and it reminds you that even legends invite participation. Now we reach what locals call the Vanishing Wing, a section of hospital so obscured that few maps note its existence. Its doors sometimes appear in memory, only to vanish the next moment. Corridors loop back impossibly, making hallways feel endless. Clocks never show the correct time. They freeze at strange hours, or spin backward for a few seconds before stopping completely. Those who explore the wing report a sensation of being followed, not by a person, but by a presence that moves with them, just beyond perception. The rooms themselves seem to pulse faintly, like they remember every footstep, every whispered word. Here, the walls themselves hold stories. The faded paint conceals handprints that appear and vanish with the passing sun. Tiles crack, revealing the remnants of old floor plans beneath. Some say that if you press your ear against certain walls, you can hear conversations from decades past, staff reporting vital signs, patients whispering confessions, the low hum of machines long turned off. Step lightly in your imagination, because this wing does not forgive heavy tread. And yet, despite all this, there is a strange invitation in these buildings. The echoes beckon not with malice but with curiosity, asking you to witness, to feel, to remember. The hospitals are repositories of memory, not all of it pleasant, but all of it persistent. It is the accumulation of years, of human emotion, and perhaps of something that refuses to fade. If you're still here, hit like now. One small tap, but it's a signal. It's proof that you've survived the corridors of these forgotten wards, that your attention matches the rhythm of the whispers. More than that, it joins you to every other viewer who has felt the same chills while watching from their own homes. As we step back onto the roads leading further inland, you can see how these stories intertwine. Monitors that flicker in the dark, rooms that wait for no one, echoes that mimic your own voice. They are not isolated. Each hospital builds upon the last, forming a chain of legends, each link stronger, more persistent than the one before. Imagine tracing your fingers along that invisible chain, feeling each pulse of history, each lingering step. The inland hospitals grow taller in your mind as you walk these imagined halls. They stretch endlessly, halls looping back on themselves. The presence is stronger here than by the coast, heavier, more insistent. You can almost hear the accumulated breaths of decades, the rhythm of care and fear intertwined, waiting to be acknowledged. These buildings are alive in memory, if not in reality, holding the stories of everyone who passed through their doors. Before we move to the final reflection and outro, take a slow breath. Let the air of the Vanishing Wing fill your imagination. Picture the long corridors, the frozen clocks, the toys, the echoes. Feel the pulse of the buildings in your chest. This is the last chapter of intense exploration, the climax of tonight's journey through North Carolina's abandoned hospitals. And when you're ready, prepare yourself for the final reflection, where we step back from the legends, consider the weight of the stories, and offer a closing that will stay with you long after the screen goes dark. Subtle, but powerful, it will leave you with the sensation of walking those halls yourself. The roads back from North Carolina's forgotten hospitals twist through forests that seem to breathe. Headlights catch only fragments of what's left: brick shells, crooked staircases, doors sealed by rust. Yet even from a distance the buildings hum, not with electricity, but with memory. You might think of everything we've seen tonight: the hallways that stretch beyond sense, the monitors that flicker to life, the laughter that refuses to fade. Each legend is different, but they all speak the same language, the language of places that remember. Hospitals are built for healing, yet in their emptiness they become containers for unfinished stories. Imagine driving past one of them now. The sky is low, clouds hanging like heavy curtains. You glance once, meaning to look away, but your eyes linger. A single window glows faintly, maybe the reflection of your headlights, maybe something else. You blink, and it's gone. That small uncertainty is what keeps these legends alive. It's the spark that lights every ghost story, every whispered rumor, every midnight dare. When you strip away the fear, what remains is something almost tender, the idea that memories cling to the places that shaped them. Maybe the whispers are only echoes of compassion or regret, or gratitude for moments when life and death brushed shoulders in quiet rooms. Think about it. Every hallway once held footsteps. Every light once shone for someone hoping to wake again. That's why these stories endure. They're not just about ghosts, they're about persistence. They remind us that time doesn't erase emotion, it just hides it in the walls. If you've stayed this long, you've traveled through decades of dust and silence with me. You've walked the wards, stood beneath the flickering lights, listened to the air thicken around a single word: help. And maybe, somewhere in that experience, you felt a chill not from fear, but from recognition. Take a breath. Let it out slowly. Notice the sound of your own breathing. It's the same rhythm that once filled those corridors. We carry the past with us. We just don't always notice until the world goes quiet. Now picture all the hospitals together on a map. Broughton, Dorothea Dix, Otine, Cherry, the Cape Fear units, the Vanishing Wing. A constellation of abandoned places, each pulsing faintly like a heartbeat beneath the soil. The distance between them isn't measured in miles, it's measured in stories. And tonight, you've heard them all. So here's the question I always ask at the end. Are the buildings haunted, or are we the ones who haunt them? Maybe the ghosts are only mirrors, showing us our own fear of being forgotten. Maybe every empty hallway is a reminder that silence, too, has a voice. If that thought gave you a shiver, you know what to do. Tap like so it lingers a little longer, and subscribe to join the Vanguard Vault family. Around here, we keep the lights on not to chase the dark away, but to make sure we see what's moving inside it. You can comment below and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Are you alone? Are the lights dim? I read every story you share. They become part of the vault itself. Maybe next time, your comment will echo back in a new episode. Because this isn't just a channel. It's a record of the strange, the forgotten, the beautifully unsettling. Together we explore not what scares us most, but what refuses to fade. Let the camera in your mind drift once more through those corridors. See the peeling paint, the quiet beds, the dust motes floating like tiny ghosts in the flashlight beam. Hear that faint rhythm, your own heartbeat aligning with the pulse of the building. You've made it through every ward, every whisper, every legend. That's why we end each journey the same way. Comment, "I survived the vault," below. It's more than a phrase, it's a signature that marks you as part of the story. And when this video fades to black, don't rush to another tab. Sit for a moment in the silence. Listen to the hum of your room, the ticking clock, the way ordinary sounds suddenly feel charged. That's how these legends begin. Not with a scream, but with attention. Next time, we are leaving hospitals behind and descending deeper, to the underground tunnels and forgotten asylums of the Appalachian border, where even the wind sounds like breathing. If you want to come along, hit that subscribe button now. Keep the vault door open. Until then, sleep well, Vault family. Keep your lights low but not out completely, just enough to remind the dark that you are still watching. And if, later tonight, you hear a soft echo from down the hall, don't worry, it's only the past checking in to make sure you remember.